Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot into the flickering candlelit corridors of a medieval Korean palace, where the day begins not with alarms or birdsong, but the soft creak of old floorboards and the low clatter of brass basins. You're a palace maid or gungnyeo, a low-ranking court lady. You're not important enough to speak during meals, but important enough to carry the queen's undergarments without being arrested. Welcome to your ordinary, exhausting, oddly graceful day. You wake before dawn, not metaphorically. Literally before the first hint of light has graced the paper windows. The air is damp and a little sharp, your breath visible in tiny clouds, as you swing your legs off your straw sleeping mat. Someone's already tiptoeing past with a bundle of firewood. Someone else is groaning about how their knee wasn't like this last spring. You shuffle over cold floors, fingers stiff, eyes half closed, heading toward the communal washing basin that will splash you into reality whether you're ready or not. And you probably won't survive this, not because of any big drama, but because this day is going to test every ounce of your coordination, humility, and bladder control. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I love seeing how global this sleepy little community has become. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start your morning kneeling by a square stone basin. The water's been sitting overnight, and it's roughly the temperature of a ghost's handshake. You scoop it over your face with your hands. There's no soap, just coolness and the faint mineral tang. You're trying not to shriek, not out of pain, but because everything echoes in the palace at this hour. It's like trying to tiptoe across a library full of sleeping cats. By the time you're half dried and blinking a little faster, you're already late, not catastrophically, just enough to worry your name might end up in one of the supervisor's little red notebooks, the ones no one ever sees but everyone fears. Historians still argue whether those red ledgers actually influenced promotion rankings or were just a glorified hobby for petty staff managers. You're dressed in something simple for now, a white undershirt and pale cotton joggery. You'll change into your formal handbuck later. You scurry toward the inner court's main service corridor. The floor creaks in familiar places, and you mentally note that someone spilled bean powder again. You grab a rag and mop it up as you pass. This kind of self-correction is crucial. No one praises you for it, but everyone will notice if you leave it. In this early hour, the palace has a rhythm like breathing, the echo of footfalls, the faint brushing of straw brooms, the way one torch flickers brighter as a door creaks open down the hall. You find yourself moving almost automatically, folding bed mats, realigning shoe pairs, and setting out scrolls for the morning readings. Each item you touch has its own rules. The queen's bedding must be folded in thirds, then in half, and never flipped upside down, supposedly to avoid bad luck, but more practically to avoid her noticing the crease. The eunuchs say folding it wrong invites bad spirits, or bad audits. As you make your way into the smaller storage room to check on incense stocks, you pass another group of girls, older than you, higher ranked. They don't nod. You don't expect them to. Instead, you all sort of pretend you didn't see each other. Courteous invisibility is a skill here. You spot a lone magpie out the window. That's supposed to be lucky, right? But then you remember it's only good luck if it lands on your roof, not the woodcutters. Of course, whose roof it actually lands on is hotly debated, especially when people start sneezing during inspections. Back in the hallway, one of the younger girls, so young, brushes past you holding a lacquered tray with 6 folded cloths. You whisper to her that she forgot the 7th. She blinks, freezes, then disappears in a controlled panic, tray and all. You'll probably never hear about that again unless it becomes a proverb in the break room. There's one more basin to scrub, one more screen to align just so. The sun is starting to rise now, and the palace goes from cool breath to warm heartbeat. A few older ladies are lighting oil lamps for no reason other than tradition. You do the same. It's oddly calming. By the time your assigned hallway is fully prepared, bedding gone, mats rolled, incense lit, nothing suspicious on the floor, you get a moment to stand still. Just a moment. Your toes are a little numb. Your hands smell like pine ash and starch. And there, for just a beat, the palace feels like it's exhaling, like it's ready to start the day. Too bad your day's already an hour in. Now that your toes are fully awake, thanks to their brisk interaction with icy floor tiles, it's time for one of the most delicate operations of your day. Getting dressed for real. Not just palace early morning rush dressed, but court presentable. Dressed, meaning silk, hairpins, and enough layered fabric to smother a mountain goat. You head back to the dressing chamber, a narrow room that smells like camphor wood and candle soot, and already there's a quiet flurry of movement. Court. Maids are pulling drawers, flipping through bundles of handbok like stressed-out librarians. You're allotted one proper outfit per season, maybe two if your supervisor likes your handwriting. The trick is to match the formality of the occasion without, heaven forbid, wearing something similar to the queen. There are actual edicts about this. Forbidden colors, forbidden embroidery, even forbidden types of dye, if you can believe that. One poor maid once got demoted for showing up to a tea ceremony in a robe that looked too regal. It was teal. You dig through your clothing roll and pull out today's best option, a soft celadon green joggery and a pale pink chima, the long skirt that makes walking upstairs a test of faith. The fabric's a little worn near the hem, but it's clean, and more importantly, it's not yellow, reserved strictly for royalty. You do not want to be the cautionary tale of the week. Historians still argue whether these strict dress codes served as practical social order or just elaborate excuses for palace gossip. Either way, they're non-negotiable. You hold up the joggery to check for stains in the slanted morning light. There's a tiny oil blot near the cuff, probably from your midnight snack last week. You mentally file it under future regrets. Hair is next. And oh, sweet Confucius, the hair. You sit on the floor mat, knees aching just from anticipation, and reach for your wooden comb. It's carved with tiny chrysanthemums. Your only indulgence. You start detangling your sleep-tossed bun. The palace issued no mirrors, but the wall panel's shine is just reflective enough for guesswork. You part your hair with the back end of the comb and begin twisting it into a top knot, trying to remember how your mentor explained the coil technique. That doesn't unravel by lunchtime. Your fingers move automatically now, looping, pinning, adjusting. A gungnyeo, the long, ornamental hairpin, slides through the center like a needle sewing you into the day. Yours is made of bone. Pretty, modest, standard issue. You've seen the fancier ones, gold-tipped, jade-inlaid, even one with a tiny bell. Rumor has it a noble lady once used hers to signal secret messages to her lover across the courtyard. The gungnyeo would tilt to the left for yes, to the right for no. This, of course, ended badly. The bell gave her away. As you're finishing your hair, you overhear two senior maids debating what shade of blue the royal tutor wore yesterday. It was not cobalt, one insists. It was near cobalt, the other snorts. It was funeral, blue, and everyone knows that means bad news. You silently resolve to Google funeral blue when you return to the 21st century. A junior girl enters the room out of breath, cradling a stack of silk sashes like a newborn. She looks lost. You point her toward the robe chamber without speaking. She nods gratefully. This is your secret to survival here. Quiet competence and a healthy respect for the architectural layout of 14th century palaces. Now fully dressed, you do a final check, straightened seams, properly positioned ribbons, sleeves folded just so, and you head back into the corridor. The light outside is no longer gray-blue. It's yellow-gold now, washing across the flagstones and illuminating every speck of lint on your skirt. You pause to pluck them off one by one, because this is what separates you from total chaos. You pass by the portrait hall, nodding to the always closed door. No one under 6th rank is allowed inside. They say the Queen's grandmother's ghost sometimes appears in there during dress rehearsals. Whether or not that's true, you wouldn't be caught dead near it alone at night. Outside the hall, a line of gungnyeo stand fanned out like flower petals, each carrying a tray of accessories, scrolls, or someone's third favorite fan. Everyone's trying to look relaxed. No one is relaxed. There's a distinct tension in the air, like before a pop quiz or a surprise visit from the Department of Rice Quality Control. You inhale slowly. Your breath smells faintly of barley and mint. You brushed with salt this morning, using a twig. Effective, but aggressive. You've made peace with your gums. As the bell sounds from the Eastern Pavilion, signaling the Queen's attendants are about to exit their quarters, you square your shoulders. Your robe is warm now from body heat, and you walk like you know exactly where you're going, even though your next task could be anything: arranging scrolls, trimming wicks, or, if you're unlucky, assisting with the royal brush-off, otherwise known as helping the Queen choose which fan to use for her midday audience. And yet somehow, there's peace in this rhythm. You're dressed. You're not bleeding. You haven't committed a fashion crime punishable by eyebrow raise, by palace standards. You're having a pretty good morning. Your footsteps now sound different, softer, muted by the trailing folds of your chima as you move with purpose through the winding interior of the palace. You're still not entirely sure where you're headed, but that's part of the daily dance. Wherever you land, there will be something to dust, polish, or fold, preferably in that order. Your first assigned task? Folding bedding, again. But this time it's not yours. It's the secondary consort's. And let's be honest, her quarters always smell faintly of sandalwood and judgment. The bedding is made of thick silk, embroidered with cranes and pine. Trees and stacked so neatly you hesitate to touch it. Still, you begin. Fold once, lengthwise. Again, crosswise. Smooth out the edges. Place it at a perfect 45-degree angle beneath the window, the way she likes it. Next is the scroll table. There's a small reading nook she favors in the morning, complete with ink stones, brushes, and an ivory paperweight shaped like a gourd. Everything must be precisely 3 finger widths apart. Not 2, not 4. You learned that the hard way. Last month, when a single brush out of alignment nearly cost you your barley snack ration. True tragedy. As you dust around the low scroll stand, you accidentally brush against a loose floorboard. It creaks. You freeze. No one appears. Still, you make a mental note. 3rd board, northeast corner. A useful squeak if you ever need to hear someone coming. Palace survival depends on these micro maps. Quiet codes shared only through nods and side eyes. Gungnyeo communication is an art of glances. A raised brow might mean, don't go in there. A sniff could signal, she's in a mood. An exaggerated yawn. Nap while you can, sister. These codes evolve daily, and if you don't stay fluent, you'll miss the memo that today's head attendant is on a rampage over improperly folded hand towels. You pass by the linen storeroom and overhear a heated debate between 2 older maids. One insists that Queen Munjong once outlawed green silk for an entire summer because a dream told her it would bring frogs. The other snorts. It was because her cousin died in a green robe. Historians still argue whether such edicts were based on dreams, superstition, or sheer royal whimsy. Either way, the frogs never came. Your next stop is the small mirror alcove, not for grooming, but to clean the copper mirror that sits behind a decorative screen. It's purely symbolic, meant to reflect inner virtue or something like that, but you still have to polish it with a peach pit cloth until your fingers go numb. Don't question it. Just buff and zone out. While cleaning, you hear a sharp cough. Behind you. You glance back. It's the third assistant record keeper. She gives you the, "you forgot the incense burner again" look. You grimace, bow slightly, and correct the error. A small jade burner goes on the windowsill, filled with a specific blend of mugwort and plum blossom resin. It's meant to calm the nerves. No one knows whose nerves. Probably the mirror's. By now, your back is starting to twinge. You roll your shoulders discreetly and head toward the hall of ceremonial paperwork, where someone, probably Mincio, who always disappears during difficult assignments, has left a pile of document wrappers. These are silk sleeves used to hold royal edicts. And yes, they also must be folded a certain way, not just for aesthetics. Apparently, folding them incorrectly invites bad fortune or misinterpretation, which is awkward if the edict is about war. You settle onto a low stool and begin folding, smoothing, adjusting. One of the higher-ranking maids walks by and mutters, "Too crisp, loosen the creases." You nod and pretend to understand. You're about 5 seconds from folding them into paper cranes just to see what happens. As you stack the finished wrappers, a tiny skittering sound draws your attention. A small mouse, yes, a real mouse, darts out from under the filing cabinet, grabs a crumb of rice cake someone dropped, and disappears. You blink. No one else sees it. That's probably for the best. There's an old superstition that seeing a mouse in daylight means change is coming. You hope it means lunch is coming. Around the corner, a door creaks open and someone calls for you to help rearrange the embroidery samples in the royal viewing gallery. You set down your stack and scurry over, dodging an apprentice with a basket of pressed flowers. The embroidery gallery is a long, bright room with tapestries hanging like silent witnesses. Your job is to shift 3 of them exactly half an arm's length to the left. Why? Because the queen wants a fresh perspective. Not metaphorically, literally. She'll be sitting in a new chair today. You adjust the first tapestry, a mountain, seen with cranes mid-flight. As you reposition it, you notice a tiny flaw in the stitching. One cloud is shaped like a peach. Subtle, intentional, you're not sure. You file it under Palace Mysteries and move on. Just as you're finishing, someone mutters behind you, "Hey, don't look now, but the assistant chamberlain just tripped on his own fan." You do look. He's fine, just flustered. You both stifle giggles. Small moments like these are what keep the day from becoming unbearable. Finally, you step outside the gallery into a sun-warmed corridor, and the light hits your face like a balm. You exhale slowly, savoring the brief stillness before the kitchen bell rings and chaos resumes. You've folded, dusted, decoded, and dodged. And it's still not even breakfast. It begins with a hiss. Not a snake, but steam, curling, thick, and slightly fragrant. It sneaks under the wooden doors and slinks across the flagstones like it owns the place. You've arrived at the palace kitchen. Technically, you're not assigned here today. But you're junior, and junior maids are forever being borrowed by other departments. Someone claps eyes on your reasonably clean sleeves and suddenly you're an assistant cook. Again. The kitchen is a long, low building that smells like roasted barley, fermented bean paste, and ambition. Fires crackle in 3 open hearths. Smoke drifts lazily from a hole in the ceiling. Baskets of wild greens are stacked near the chopping board, and the air is alive with sharp words and sharper. Knives, your job? Prep rice, the staple, the centerpiece, the thing everyone will blame if breakfast goes sideways. You head to the steaming station, where massive iron cauldrons, gamasot, sit nestled over open flames. A senior cook hands you a wooden paddle the size of a canoe oar and points toward a mountain of soaked rice. You stir, carefully. Too fast and the grains break. Too slow and it burns. Either way, you're doomed. You stir like your life depends on it, because, well, it kind of does. The Queen Dowager has famously fickle taste in rice texture. One day she wants it dry and chewy, the next silky and soft. "It should glide like snow on a roof," she once declared. What that means in culinary terms is anyone's guess. Historians still argue whether royal food preferences were personal or politically calculated. Did dry rice mean strong governance? Behind you, someone sneezes. Everyone freezes. Sneezing near the Queen Dowager's food is a capital crime. Okay, not officially, but it's bad. The room tenses like a drawn bowstring. The sneezer is ushered out so fast their shoes don't even squeak. You resume stirring, now sweating more from nerves than heat. While the rice simmers, you're handed a platter of side dishes to arrange. Banchan. There's lotus root glazed in soy syrup, pickled radish cut like flowers, and salted anchovies, curled into a spiral. You use bamboo chopsticks to adjust the presentation, being careful not to touch anything with your fingers. No one's watching, but also, everyone's watching. The head kitchen attendant walks by, sniffing like a sommelier. She pauses at your tray, narrows her eyes, then walks on. You let out a breath so slow it's basically steam. Next comes the soup course. A ginseng chicken broth that smells incredible but is somehow forbidden to you. You're allowed to look. Maybe inhale gently, but definitely not taste. You ladle it into a porcelain bowl with cranes painted on the rim. One of the Queen's favorites, or maybe not. You've seen her push it away for too much bird energy. You place the bowl on a black lacquered tray. Everything on the tray must be symmetrical. Left-right balance, visual calm, like a perfectly composed still life that you have to walk across slippery tiles with. No pressure. Your feet feel like clouds and anvils at once. You breathe shallowly as you cross the courtyard, tray in hand. The air has warmed now. A few bees hover near the herb garden. A eunuch nods as you pass. You nod back, your neck stiff from trying to keep the broth level. Inside the Queen Dowager's receiving hall, the silence is so thick you could bottle it. A palace maid with 3 more stripes on her sleeve takes the tray from you. You bow and back out slowly. Your part is done, but don't relax just yet. You return to the kitchen and help with cleanup, scraping bowls, stacking plates, collecting chopsticks like sacred relics. A small pile of burnt rice stuck to the bottom of the gamasot is scraped out into a bowl. You glance at it longingly. Nurungji, the crispy rice crust, is a rare treat. You're not technically allowed, but someone winks and scoops a piece into your hand when no one's looking. It's still warm. You chew slowly, blissfully. While tidying up, you notice someone has left a charcoal sketch on the wall. A cat wearing a court hat. No one claims it. But you're fairly sure it's the kitchen assistant with the lopsided bun. She's also rumored to add extra chestnut to the stew when her favorite eunuch is on duty. Scandalous. As you finish your shift, you wash. Your hands in a basin of lukewarm tea water. Supposedly good for the skin. Mostly, it just smells better than the fish sauce you spilled on your sleeve earlier. Outside, the light has shifted again. It's not quite noon, but the palace buzz is different. Faster. Slightly less polite. You've survived the kitchen, for now. And your next assignment? Something quiet, something dignified, something that involves gossip. Oh, yes. You've earned a brief reprieve. No rice paddles, no steam burns, no balancing broths like you're auditioning for a palace-themed circus. Instead, you're back in the women's quarters, nestled among lacquered cabinets, paper screens, and tables adorned with flowered inkstones. It's where the real games are played. Because behind these serene wooden doors, gossip reigns supreme. You're supposed to be folding sashes. You do fold sashes, delicately, with great care. But your ears are doing most of the heavy lifting. The room smells like peony powder and roasted barley tea. You settle onto a floor cushion that creaks suspiciously, and next to you, Jiwon is already deep into a story involving someone tripping in front of the crown prince. Twice, in the same morning. in 2 different outfits. The thing about gossip in the palace is that it's never just gossip. It's intelligence. It's survival. It's also mildly hilarious. You listen as the girls trade whispers about whose embroidery won a glance from the queen, who was late to morning bell, and who's been mysteriously reassigned to stable duty after a misunderstanding involving pickled plums and a secret message that turned out to be someone's laundry list. Historians still debate how much influence these informal networks of court ladies had on the actual workings of the palace. Official records are silent, of course, but if anyone truly controlled morale, mood, and momentum, it was the gungnyeo. You nod at the right moments, pretending to be focused on the indigo. Sash you're folding. The fabric's soft, and it smells faintly of someone's hair oil. You resist the urge to sniff deeply. That would be weird. Probably across from you. So Young fans herself with a stiff piece of parchment. She isn't hot. She's deflecting. Attention! Whenever she starts fanning like that, it means she's got something really juicy. And then, Lady Hua said it wasn't her cat who clawed the queen's poetry scroll, she whispers, but the scroll had fish sauce stains on it. Fish sauce from her lunch tray. Everyone gasps, but in that careful way palace maids do when gasping. It's 30% surprise, 70% performance. You raise an eyebrow. Was it a white cat? You murmur. Of course, she replies. With one blue eye, the white cat. The one with the pillow in the queen's antechamber. You've seen it. You've bowed to it. You've possibly apologized to it once after stepping on its tail. Meanwhile, the folding has ground to a halt. Yuna is now rearranging hairpins by sentimental value. One's from her mother, one's from her sister. One is emotionally neutral but excellent for wind resistance. Someone changes the subject. Did anyone else hear that the new head scribe arrived with 7 trunks of clothing? No one needs 7 trunks unless they're planning to overthrow fashion itself, someone replies. You try not to laugh. You fail. It comes out as a snort you disguise as a sneeze. There's a moment of silence. Then Ji-won says, "Bless you." Then everyone loses it. Laughter in the women's quarters is muffled but unmistakable. It sounds like sheets being shaken out, like rain slipping off silk awnings. It's not allowed exactly, but not forbidden either. You're reminded again that rules in the palace are a matter of who's watching and who's pretending not. 2. You return to your sashes, now folding with slightly more flair than necessary. A neat little loop here. A flourish there. You feel lighter, calmer, less like a rice-stained ghost. Of course, peace doesn't last. An older maid enters, brows furrowed, hands behind her back. She clears her throat. The queen has summoned attendants to refresh her screens. I need 2 of you. No one moves. She points. You and Ji-won. You exchange a glance that says, well, it was fun while it lasted. As you rise and gather your hem, someone mutters behind you, don't trip. There's fish sauce at stake. You don't trip. But you do carry the scent of laughter with you as you glide toward the queen's chambers. And just know that someone will be retelling this exact conversation 3 days from now. Except in their version, you were the one who tripped. Your footsteps are careful now. Too careful. The kind of deliberate shuffle reserved for tightrope walkers, bomb diffusers, and palace maids delivering hot tea to the most powerful woman in Joseon. You're holding a lacquered tray, black, with inlaid mother of pearl, upon which rests a ceramic teapot so delicate it looks like it would shatter if you even thought about breathing too hard. Steam curls from the spout in elegant spirals, as if even the tea itself knows it's on royal duty. Beside you, Ji-won is carrying the cups, 3 of them, identical in shape, but each with a different flower painted on the inside. Plum blossom, chrysanthemum, and peony. Don't ask which cup the queen prefers. The answer changes depending on the phase of the moon, the alignment of Venus, and how her breakfast rice turned out. You've just turned the corner to the queen's audience chamber when disaster nearly strikes. A eunuch cuts across the hallway with a bundle of scrolls. You pause. He pauses. For one unbearable second, your tray wobbles like a slow-motion nightmare. You steady it. He bows slightly. You bow back, trying not to scream. Inside the audience chamber, everything is symmetrical. Painfully so. The room smells faintly of incense, dragon's blood, if your nose is correct. You step carefully across the jade-inlaid floor, counting each wooden panel silently in your head. 16, 17, 18. Pause. At the far end of the room, behind a folding screen decorated with irises and cranes, sits the queen. You don't see her. You're not supposed to unless summoned. But you feel her. The same way you feel a summer storm before it breaks. A higher-ranking maid steps forward and gently clears her throat. You kneel, placing the tray on a low table, and begin the ceremony of tea pouring. 1. Lift the pot with both hands. 2. Rotate slightly, counterclockwise. Never clockwise. That's for morning rituals. 3. Pour in a smooth stream, avoiding bubbles, which are considered messy and inauspicious. The tea is gukwa cha, chrysanthemum blossom. It floats in delicate curls inside the porcelain. You offer the cup, held at the base with your right hand, supported by your left. You do not look up. You do not breathe audibly. Behind the screen, you hear the softest rustle, then silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of someone taking a sip. Success. You and Jiwon remain kneeling for exactly 8 breaths. Then a voice, not the queen's, but a senior maid's, says, "You may go." You retreat like waves from the shore, graceful, smooth, and desperately trying not to back into the incense stand. Outside, the air feels about 20 degrees cooler. You and Jiwon glance at each other. She mouths, "Chrysanthemum," with a smug look. She guessed correctly. You mutter, "It'll be plum blossom tomorrow." And she nods, resigned. You head back toward the service corridor, your nerves still jangling from the tension. Someone once said that serving tea to the queen feels like threading a needle during an earthquake, with your job on the line. Historians still argue whether the elaborate rituals around royal tea were truly about aesthetics or just coded exercises in obedience. Either way, you've completed one of the most stress-inducing rituals of your role without fainting, or spilling, or sneezing. That last one is key. A sneeze in front of royalty? That's a one-way ticket to latrine duty. Back in the hallway, you finally exhale and lean briefly against a pillar. Your shoulders ache. Your fingers smell faintly of roasted flower petals and terror. Then comes the post-tea cleanup. You head toward the washing alcove, where the used cups are rinsed in lukewarm water infused with pine needles and a dash of rice wine. Not for drinking, strictly ceremonial. The residue of royal lips is handled with reverence and a bit of mild paranoia. You swish, rinse, and dry each piece with cloths softer than your own pillow. Jiwon breaks the silence. Did you see her? Ring? You blink. What ring? The queen's? Green jade? New? You pause. Green jade could mean a gift from a visiting envoy. Or maybe it's a sign. Or maybe it's just a ring. But in the palace, nothing is just anything. You nod. Noted. Because that's the game. Every object, every movement, every sip of tea is both a ritual and a rumor waiting to happen. Later, you pass the mirror alcove again. Someone has drawn a smiley face on the copper panel with condensation. It's already fading. You smile anyway. Tea service is over. No one died. No one cried. You call that a win. And next on your agenda? Laundry. Where? Dignity goes to get wrung out. Laundry day. Again. You'd think that with all the embroidered silks, triple-stitched underrobes, and 16-layered formal wear, The palace would employ an entire sub-department just for laundry. And technically, it does. You're in it. Or, at least you are today. You step into the laundry yard, a stone-paved courtyard just east of the servants' quarters. It's already alive with the sounds of splashing, scrubbing, and occasional groans of despair. The air smells like soap root, steam, and wet linen. So much linen. The water's been drawn into stone basins and warmed slightly over coals, but warm is a cruel exaggeration. You roll up your sleeves, take one look at the first bundle. White. Ceremonial undergarments for one of the Queen's younger sisters, and sigh dramatically. No one notices. Everyone's sighing. You plunge your hands into the water. It's not cold, it's glacial. Your fingers go numb in under 5 seconds. The fabric feels stiff from starch and ego. You knead and rinse and try not to think about how many more bundles are coming. Across from you, another maid hums a song so monotonous it could legally qualify as a chant. It helps. You're handed a bar of soap root paste and start scrubbing a sleeve that someone managed to stain with persimmon juice. That someone is, of course, never named. But palace rumor suggests it might have been a low-ranking noble's daughter who thinks folding things is beneath her. As you rinse and wring, you overhear 2 older gungnyeo talking in low voices. Not about the laundry, but about someone sneaking a note into a handkerchief last week. A love note. Hidden in laundry. Classic move. Historians still debate whether court maids had the means or courage to maintain forbidden relationships within palace walls. Technically, they were meant to remain unmarried and chaste. Realistically, humans are humans, and laundry is full of loopholes. You fold a silk sash, still damp, into a tight roll and place it on a reed tray for drying. The sun peeks over the roof tiles, its warmth reaching your ankles. Blessed sun. Maybe your socks will dry this time. Suddenly, a shriek, you turn and see a junior maid, probably 14 max, holding up a pair of what used to be white underpants, but are now a soft, accusatory pink. Someone's red ribbon has clearly bled in the wash. A collective gasp ripples through the laundry yard. Color contamination is one of the worst crimes in the realm of palace housekeeping. If those belong to anyone with a title, someone's getting reassigned to chamber pot detail. You return to your own pile, whispering a prayer to the laundry spirits as you rinse another pair of undersleeves. The water sloshes rhythmically, your hands move on autopilot, and for a moment, it's almost meditative, until your back starts aching. Again. One of the older laundry masters limps past with a wicker basket stacked to dangerous heights. You offer to help. He eyes you warily, then nods. You balance the top layer, rolled undergarments and one oddly folded handkerchief, and follow him to the drying lines. The handkerchief flutters in the breeze. You squint. There's something written in tiny brush strokes in one corner. You do. Not read it. Of course not. That would be invasive. And also, you can't make out the characters from this angle. Still, your curiosity tingles. The lines are already full. Shirts, robes, wraps, and mysterious square cloths you've stopped trying to categorize. Some are embroidered, some patched, some clearly worn by someone who believes in dramatic sleeve flaring. As a lifestyle, you pin up your load and step back. It's a strange, lovely sight. All that fabric swaying like flags of a nation entirely built on hierarchy and breath-holding. As you return for another bundle, someone tosses you a damp cloth. Catch. You do. Barely. It's heavy and smells like herbs. A medicinal wrap. Probably from the royal physician's quarters. You place it in the rinse basin and watch the herbs tint the water a faint green. Another maid whispers, "Last time we washed one of those, a frog came out." You glance down. No frogs, just soggy mint leaves. You rinse faster. Later, as you help fold the final items, someone brings out barley tea in chipped ceramic cups. You sip gratefully, warmth finally reaching your fingertips. Your nails are wrinkled. Your wrists are sore. Your robe sleeves are dotted with soap stains you won't notice until they dry. Still, there's a weird kind of satisfaction in it. Clean fabric, sunlight, the soft gossip of girls who know how to whisper without moving their lips. A final bundle is delivered, sheets from the queen's private chamber. You handle them like treasure, smooth, fold, and stack them with reverence, because, no matter how mundane the task, you're touching the daily rhythm of a living palace. And also, if you fold her sheets the wrong way, you'll never be allowed near tea again. You've just wiped your hands on your apron, carefully avoiding the herb stains, when a bell rings. Not the lunch bell, the summon bell. Every maid within earshot pauses, stiffens, and does the same slow blink. That bell never means anything relaxing. It means someone important wants something now, and unfortunately for you, your name is one of the two called. You're summoned to the queen's quarters again. But this time, it's not for tea. It's for attention. Specifically, you're told, the queen needs assistance. Refreshing her. Sleeves. What does that mean? No one will say. Possibly, no one knows. Possibly it means rearranging the fabric folds of her outfit. Possibly it means pretending to do something so she doesn't feel ignored. Possibly it means a very delicate crisis is unfolding, and you are now a background actor in it. You hurry through the halls, shoes barely tapping the floor, and are ushered in through the side entrance. No fanfare, no direct eye contact. The Yatsiwa room is bright, with light filtered through painted silk screens. It smells like clove oil and cherry bark, the queen's preferred seasonal fragrance. She's standing at the window, gazing out, one hand slightly lifted, the way one might hold a very boring book or a tired bird. Two attendants are already nearby, one holding a mirror, one arranging the queen's hem. You step into position like you were born to it and gently take the end of her sleeve. The queen doesn't look at you. She doesn't need to. You smooth the silk, making sure it drapes just so, an inch longer on the left to match the angle of her elbow. She sighs. Not so stiff. You soften the fold, let the fabric glide a bit more freely. She nods almost imperceptibly. It's enough. There's tension in the air. Not quite danger, but something charged. You catch snippets of conversation from the adjoining room. Something about a late envoy, a missed delivery, a cousin's wife who wore shoes that squeaked during prayers. Scandalous. One of the other maids accidentally bumps a lacquer box. The queen's brow twitches. You all freeze. Then she exhales and steps away. That will be all. You bow so low your spine makes a new acquaintance with your heels. Then you back away, turn, and exit with a grace you didn't know you possessed. Once. Outside, Jiwon, who has mysteriously reappeared, grabs your sleeve. What happened? She whispers. Nothing, you say. And I plan to keep it that way, because assisting the queen directly is like standing beside a candle flame, warming if you're careful, scorching if you're not. But your trial isn't over. No sooner. Have you returned to the hallway than another command arrives? Bring the yellow silk band, the one with the butterfly embroidery. Butterfly embroidery? Yellow silk? You race to the storage chamber where ceremonial accessories are kept, flipping through folded bands, color-coded trays, and a sea of ribbons that seem determined to hide. You find a silk band, pale gold, with something that might be a butterfly. Or a very optimistic flower. You take it, pray, and run. Back in the queen's chamber, she glances at the band and for the briefest moment, smiles. Tiny, mysterious, terrifying. That one. She takes it herself and ties it around a fan. Not for fashion, for meaning. Every accessory has double or triple symbolism here, and the butterfly likely refers to dreams or longing or a poem her cousin once wrote about silkworms. Who knows? Historians still debate whether the use of such symbolic accessories was truly understood by all court ladies, or whether some of them just nodded and copied the next girl. You lean toward the latter. As the queen departs with her attendants, you and the others exhale collectively, like a wave pulling back from shore. Someone mutters, "Her mood's improving." Someone else says, "Or she's plotting something." You smile and return to the corridor, where the tension quickly fades like steam after a bath. And then, because this is the palace and timing is a myth, you're told to check on the royal cats. Yes, cats. Apparently, one has gone missing. Again. The queen's favorite, of course. You find yourself peeking under benches, behind silk screens, even beneath the offering table near the portrait hall. The cat is nowhere. You whistle, quietly, stupidly. The cat, being a royal and thus above obedience, does not respond. You finally locate her curled on a pile of ceremonial mats, licking her paw with great purpose. You lift her gently, very gently, and she swats at your earring. You carry her back like a furry relic, and upon return she immediately leaps from your arms and disappears behind a screen. Mission technically accomplished. By the time you're back in the hallway, the floor is warm underfoot, the afternoon light golden. You've adjusted sleeves, interpreted butterflies, and herded cats. In 1 hour, you deserve a nap. You won't get one. You've just finished washing off a few faint cat scratches, one on your wrist, one suspiciously close to your hairline, when another summons comes, though this one arrives with less drama and more rolled eyes. Someone needs to check on. The parrot, a senior attendant says, like she's assigning you to hold a particularly tedious opinion for the afternoon. You blink. "We have a parrot?" "We still have a parrot," she replies dryly, "and it still doesn't like anyone." So off you go, winding your way through the West Wing toward the Queen's botanical retreat. A room meant for plants, but which also houses one of the more peculiar palace residents, a blind elderly parrot named Gungnyeo. Gungnyeo is a gift from a foreign envoy, possibly from Southeast Asia, possibly from somewhere with many spices and loud markets, according to the most specific account available. He's been here for over a decade, which makes him older than most of the current staff. You slide open the lattice door and immediately hear a squawk. Gungnyeo does not squawk like a normal bird. He squawks like a bureaucrat who just learned he's been reassigned to the archives. You bow instinctively. Uncertain palace etiquette has conditioned you to do this to anything with its own sleeping quarters. The room smells like oranges, dried herbs, and parrot. You spot Gungnyeo perched slightly crooked on a golden swing. His feathers are still vibrant, but his eyes are milky and unfocused. Next to him is a tray of uneaten fruit slices. You approach slowly, murmuring polite nonsense. "Nice day, isn't it? No unauthorized messengers today, I see." He flutters, snorts, and mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Late again. You've never been late to this bird in your life. Your job today is to tidy his perch, replace the fruit, and, if he allows it, mist his feathers with water scented with jujube. You start by changing the fruit, pears, persimmons, and something that might have once been a grape. You don't make eye contact, not because you're shy, but because he's been known to lunge." Gungnyeo hisses softly. You interpret that as, "I tolerate you." A small bell hangs from one corner of his cage. You jingle it gently, partly to soothe him, partly to check that it hasn't been tampered with. You once heard it was used to signal secret meetings, though that's probably just the kind of story someone made up during laundry duty. You reach for the misting bottle and spray a fine mist across his wings. He makes a sound that's halfway between a groan and a sneeze. "Better," he mutters. "Glad to hear it," you whisper back. Historians still argue whether the parrot was trained to speak political phrases on purpose or if he's just a genius at memorizing arguments. One of his most repeated lines is, "That's not what the scroll said," which has caused more than one scribe to visibly sweat. You finish tidying his perch, leave a tiny fresh towel near his water bowl, and bow again before exiting. You're not entirely sure if it's respect or habit at this point. Outside the aviary, you're greeted by Gungnyeo, who appears when she senses tasks are wrapping up. "The cat's in the herb room again," she says. You blink. "I just returned her. She's in the herb jars now." So off you go. Again. Back at the herb room, the queen's white cat is indeed nestled inside a crate of dried ginseng, purring like she's discovered the cure for royal boredom. You lift her, again, with both hands, trying not to disrupt her newfound herbal throne. She mews, annoyed, but allows the relocation. As you carry her out, one of the younger maids bows slightly and whispers, "We should start calling you Keeper of Creatures." You snort. "Only if I get a badge." "Or a hairpin shaped like a cat paw," she offers. Honestly, you'd wear that. Later, as the pets are finally contained and you've washed your hands for the 10th time today, you find yourself summoned for one last animal-related task, returning the queen's ink brush with the rabbit hair bristles. It's not for writing. It's a keepsake. And no, you may not question that. You find it in her sitting room, next to a half-finished fan decorated with clouds. You pick it up carefully, holding it as though it could whisper secrets. The handle is carved with peach blossoms and tiny script too small to read. You deliver it without incident and are, mercifully, not handed another creature or antique. For now. As the sun tilts toward the western rooftops, your shift begins to slow. You've served tea, adjusted sleeves, laundered cloth, wrangled cats, and flattered a blind parrot. There's only one thing left that might resemble rest. But don't get too excited, because it's time for the nap you'll never actually get. You hear the word whispered down the corridor like a promise made of clouds. Nap time. A phrase so tender, so rare, it might as well be embroidered in gold thread and framed on the queen's favorite tea tray. Your stomach flutters. Your eyes practically close in anticipation. But deep down, you know the truth. You will not nap. Oh no. You will observe nap time from a respectful distance, like a painter admiring a landscape he can never touch. You are stationed in the hallway just outside the senior maid's chamber. Inside, they lounge on floor cushions, some resting, others breathing like sleeping kittens wrapped in silk. The room smells like sesame oil and tranquility. Their duties paused. They drift into the kind of sleep that only comes to those high enough on the ladder to close their eyes during daylight without consequence. You sit on a reed mat. Not a cushion. That would imply comfort. And you've not. Yet earned the rank that comes with lumbar support. To stay awake and discreet, you reach for your embroidery kit. It's small, wooden, and mildly warped from last summer's humidity. Inside, needles, spools of thread, a half-finished handkerchief with a lotus flower design, and your dreams of a horizontal life. You begin stitching, one thread at a time. In, out, in, out. It's almost hypnotic, the kind of rhythm that could lure you into slumber, if not for the ever-present risk of jabbing yourself and crying out like a fool. You focus on the pattern, your stitches looping like tiny secrets woven into cloth. Beside you, So Young, is also, pretending not to nap. Her head bobs slightly. Her needlework has turned into accidental modern art. You nudge her. She blinks. "I was meditating." You snort. Historians still argue whether these post-lunch rests were formal policy or just a tradition tolerated by supervisors who also wanted a break. Either way, there's a strict etiquette to it. You can't ask for a nap. But if someone important says, "Let's take a moment," you bow and agree, like you weren't just begging the spirits for 10 minutes horizontal. Someone passes by with a kettle of barley tea. She pours a little into your shared cup, and for a moment, the simple act of sipping warm tea in a quiet hall feels almost indulgent. You hear a soft creak. One of the supervisors turns in her sleep. You freeze mid-sip. The tea touches your lip, but doesn't pass. You swallow your breath instead. Moments later, silence settles again. And then it begins, the nap choreography. You shuffle embroidery threads just so. You reposition your knees to improve circulation without looking restless. You pretend to be deeply engrossed in a piece of calligraphy you've seen 4 times today. The hallway is bathed in warm golden light. Dust motes drift like fairy thoughts. Somewhere, a sparrow chirps once, then vanishes. You manage 3 stitches before your eyelids betray you. Heavy, heavier. Just a short blink, you tell yourself. Just one, hey. You jump slightly. Jiwon has returned. She holds out a slice of dried persimmon like she's offering forbidden treasure. You take it gratefully. It's chewy, sweet, and shockingly energizing, like biting into a secret handshake. I rescued it from the kitchen, she whispers. Don't ask how. You don't. The embroidery resumes. So young resumes pretending. Jiwon, miraculously, begins untangling the mass of threads she's somehow created in your absence. Do you think the queen naps? You ask softly. Jiwon shrugs. Not with that parrot. Fair. Soon, the nap bell chimes softly, not to wake the seniors, but to mark the end of permitted stillness. The chamber, maids inside begin stirring. One sighs. Another rolls her neck. You stand, roll your mat with great discretion, and stretch your ankles, which have gone on strike during the last half hour. So Young yawns and says it's a breathing exercise. You all nod. You gather your embroidery, brush a few threads from your skirt, and prepare for the next assignment, because break time is over, and now it's time to return to learning. Reading, stitching, and of course, poetry you only half understand but pretend to deeply feel. You follow the sound of soft chanting and the rustle of parchment to the learning pavilion, a serene chamber set apart from the busier wings of the palace where young court ladies are taught to cultivate their minds and patience. A low table waits for you, already stacked with neatly brushed scrolls and a single inkstone. Someone has poured a tiny pool of black ink onto the grinding dish, its surface smooth as obsidian. Your brush sits beside it, slender and slightly frayed from overuse. You sit cross-legged, tuck your hands neatly into your sleeves, and await the lesson. Today's schedule includes reading classical hanja, practicing your stitch work, and enduring a poetry recitation so dense it could be used to fortify walls. The instructor enters, a palace scholar with an expression that suggests he disapproves of everything, including oxygen. He clears his throat. The room immediately stiffens. We will continue with the analects, he announces, as if revealing this week's plot twist. You nod respectfully, though your soul quietly sighs. The analects of Confucius, required, revered, and relentlessly inscrutable. The scholar reads aloud, each word like a pebble dropped into a still pond. The master said, when one rules by means of virtue, you drift slightly, not in disrespect, in survival. Your brush is already in hand, copying characters onto fine mulberry paper. The strokes are meant to be deliberate, balanced, ideally beautiful. Yours look like a chicken wrote them while fleeing a thunderstorm. Across from you, Jiwon mouths the lines as she copies. She's good at this. She actually likes the poetry, even if she sometimes whispers translations like, basically don't. Be a jerk, under her breath. You stifle a giggle. Not because it's particularly funny, but because laughter during lessons is the forbidden fruit of the literate. After an hour of careful calligraphy and polite suffering, the mood shifts. Now, says the scholar, recite the poem from yesterday. Your stomach drops. You forgot the poem. No, wait. You remember parts of the poem. Something about swans, exile, and a flower blooming on a mountain no one can climb. The rest is a poetic mystery. So Young goes first. Her voice is steady, her pacing gentle. She gets halfway through and mispronounces tranquil. No one laughs. It's not that kind of room. Your turn. You rise, bow, and recite with just enough confidence to fake comprehension. A few of your lines flow, others meander. You invent a metaphor about a snow-dusted branch of silence, hoping that sounds Confucian enough. The scholar nods. Not approval. More like vague acknowledgement. You sit, sweaty but alive. Historians still debate the true purpose of these poetry sessions, whether they were meant to cultivate refinement or simply test obedience. Either way, you survive. After poetry comes stitching practice, thankfully something you can do without tripping over philosophy. You unfold your cloth and resume work on your lotus flower. You've added a few new petals today, and even though one is definitely shaped more like a potato than a blossom, it's coming along. So Young leans over and whispers, "Mine's supposed to be a phoenix. Doesn't it look majestic?" You glance. Over. It looks like a startled chicken on stilts. You nod solemnly. Majestic. Embroidery isn't just about aesthetics here. It's also a quiet contest. Who can stitch the cleanest leaf? Whose thread tension is so perfect it looks painted? Who accidentally sewed her sleeve to her fabric and didn't notice for 20 minutes? Hint. It was you. Last week. The room smells faintly of ink, cloth, and determination. The light slants in through the window in golden rectangles, making your threads sparkle in a deceptively hopeful way. Soon, the stitching instructor comes around, inspecting work. She pauses at your lotus, hums. "It is expressive," she says. You smile like that was the goal. After an hour of quiet sewing, the lesson ends. The scholar dismisses you with a bow that somehow conveys both exhaustion and judgment. You roll up your fabric, clean your brush, and leave the pavilion with your friends, all of you blinking at the brightness of the hallway like cavefish seeing. Sunlight. "Do you think anyone actually understands those poems?" Jiwan asks. "Maybe," you say. "Or maybe they're just reciting them to impress the parrot. A new rumor. You add it to your collection. You emerge from the scholarly fog of stitched metaphors and Confucian virtues into a slightly livelier realm, the palace garden. Technically, you're here to accompany a senior lady on her afternoon stroll. In reality, you're expected to walk. In quiet formation, offer arm support if prompted, and pretend not to notice when small dramas unfold among the flower beds. The garden is one of the palace's hidden wonders. A curated wilderness of plum trees, moss-covered stones, and tiny ponds full of fish that somehow look better fed than you. The air smells of damp earth and something faintly medicinal, mugwort maybe, or whatever the royal herbalist was drying on the rooftop again. Your shoes crunch softly on gravel as you and Jiwan walk behind Lady Seo, who is recovering from too much sitting, according to her own diagnosis. She's draped in a pale lavender robe and walking with the determination of someone who knows her presence alone changes social weather patterns. "She's in a good mood today," Jiwan whispers. You nod. She's walking clockwise around the pond. Everyone knows clockwise means contentment. Counterclockwise means someone's going to be reassigned to inventory night shifts. As you round the stone path beneath an arching pine, you notice two other ladies on a bench nearby. One is casually holding a fan. The other is casually pretending not to read a poem aloud. Their voices are low, their posture exquisite, their entire interaction dripping with the kind of polite rivalry that makes flowers wilt in confusion. It's the courtly version of accidentally liking your rival's painting, and then painting something slightly better the next day. Lady Seo pauses near a rock garden shaped like a crane in flight and turns to you. "Is that a new brooch on Lady Hua?" You glance discreetly. "Yes, my lady." Jade, I believe. Too pale, she mutters. Makes her look sickly. You say nothing. You nod as if you too are deeply offended by pale jade. Historians still argue whether court strolls were actual recreation or just a socially acceptable way to monitor your rival's hemstitching. Based on what you're witnessing, it's both. Further along the path, the Queen's secret gardener is trimming a bonsai with tiny gold scissors. He doesn't look up, but you're pretty sure he heard the sickly jade comment. Everyone hears. Everything here. Even the bonsai probably knows. Lady Seo stops to admire a patch of peonies. They're late this year, she sighs. You nod again. They must be shy. She chuckles, and for a moment you feel a breeze of real warmth from her. Then she sighs again. Or just poorly managed. A squirrel darts across the path, chased by one of the royal cats. Again. The cat's bell jingles like a wind chime. As it disappears into a hedge, you pretend you didn't see it. So does everyone else. As the walk continues, you pass through the Pavilion of Gentle Thoughts, which is a glorified gazebo with extremely judgmental koi fish. 2 junior court. Ladies are seated there, pouring tea with such precision you'd think they were defusing bombs. One looks up and bows. The other, very deliberately, does not. Oof. Tea tension. You file that away for later discussion. At the far end of the garden, you help Lady Seo settle onto a stone bench carved with lotus motifs. She waves you off with a lazy hand and begins humming. A folk song that might be about cranes, or rice, or a lost love. It's hard to tell when most of the words are la and You take a few steps back and stand under a persimmon tree, where Jiwon has already spotted someone leaving, folded paper notes inside the hollow of a nearby stone lantern. Secret love letters? She whispers. Inventory lists? You whisper back. She frowns. That's worse. The sun glows warm through the lattice of leaves, and for a moment it's peaceful. No tea trays, no scripts, just the sound of cicadas and the occasional rustle of courtly ambition disguised as a compliment. You reach down and pluck a fallen petal from your skirt. A camellia, possibly symbolic of unspoken longing or upper back pain. It really depends on the poet. As the walk winds down, Lady Seo rises with a theatrical sigh and resumes her path. You step beside her, offering your arm. She takes it lightly. Tell. Me, she murmurs. Do you prefer chrysanthemums or plum blossoms? You pause. I find chrysanthemums more loyal, my lady. She smiles. A very courtly answer. You return her smile, then glance at Jiwon, who mouths, You're a plant diplomat now. You continue walking, silent but alert. A participant in the slow ballet of social maneuvering that is the palace garden. By the time you return to the inner courtyard, the shadows have lengthened. The fish are bored. The bonsai looks smug. The squirrel has won. And somewhere in the palace, dinner is already being debated with the intensity of a peace treaty negotiation. The first sign of dinner chaos is the sound of pounding, rhythmic, fast, and slightly aggressive. Not drums, not a ceremony. It's the kitchen crew pulverizing garlic. You're summoned back naturally. The word is passed down the hall. She wants fish tonight. Not grilled, not steamed, poached in ginseng broth. Of course she does. Back you go, winding through the courtyard toward the kitchen wing, where the air is thick with smoke, urgency, and onion-induced eye trauma. The palace kitchen, already a battleground during breakfast, is now a full-blown opera of clattering ladles and swearing whispers. The head cook looks like she's aged 5 years since this morning. She waves a cleaver like a conductor's baton, directing a line of frantic assistants who are peeling, chopping, and slicing vegetables into ribbons finer than your patience. You're assigned to the fish station. The fish are fresh, too fresh. One flops slightly as you approach. You bow in apology and start preparing the fillets with trembling hands. The flesh must be perfect. No bones, no blemishes, and absolutely no scales. You've heard stories. One time, a single fish bone made it into the Queen Mother's soup. The maid who prepared it now teaches scroll folding on the night shift. You wrap the fish in muslin and lower it into the ginseng broth, careful not to disturb the floating jujube slices. The aroma is complex. Sharp herbs, earthy roots, a hint of desperation. Beside you, Ji-won is chopping mushrooms with such precision it borders on performance art. She rejected tofu yesterday, she mutters. Said it felt judgmental. You nod. You know exactly what she means. Then comes the plating. And oh, what a dance that is. Each element, rice, soup, banchan, pickles, must be arranged with mathematical beauty. The queen's plate has a specific order, 3 colors clockwise, protein at 2 o'clock, garnish facing left. Don't ask why. Asking why gets you reassigned to polishing spoons. Historians still argue whether this visual arrangement reflected spiritual harmony or just the personal taste of one very symmetrical monarch. You're given a sprig of pine needles to place atop the fish. For fragrance, someone whispers. For fear, you whisper back. The tray is lacquered black, edged with gold, and polished so well you can see your own worried face in it. You add the final dish and back away. A eunuch takes the tray with a solemn nod. Now you switch gears. The rest of the palace still needs to eat. You help distribute meals to the other wings, nobles, senior maids, scribes. Each group has its own peculiarities. The royal astrologer only eats clockwise. One of the queen's cousins insists on only left-facing mackerel. You don't even know what that means anymore. But you've learned to rotate the plate until someone stops glaring. Back in the kitchen, the leftover fish heads are being boiled down for staff soup. It's salty, spicy, and borderline sacred. You get a small bowl and hunch over it in the corner with Ji-won, who's chewing like someone who's survived a war. I heard Lady Min sent back her side dishes twice, she says. Apparently they were too yellow, you reply. Ji-won nods. Well, that's obviously a national crisis. You both laugh, then immediately stop, remembering the kitchen walls have ears. A loud crash interrupts the calm. A tray of pickles, ginger, radish, plum, has toppled near the back table. Someone slipped. Someone else is already cleaning it. No one is scolded, yet. You step over the chaos with the grace of someone used to navigating edible landmines. The final wave of meals goes out. You help scrub pans the size of bathtubs, scrape down counters, and sweep a suspicious number of garlic, skins off the floor. Your apron smells like soy sauce, your sleeves like grilled seaweed. You check the window. The sky is dark now. Stars flicker into being, shy and quiet. Somewhere in the distance, the queen is hopefully sipping her ginseng, fish, and not asking why the garnish is leaning slightly to the left. Dinner is technically over, but cleanup is its own dynasty. The plates may be cleared, the broth ladled out, and the queen momentarily appeased. But your night is far from done. Welcome to the glamorous world of post-dinner cleanup, where hierarchy sharpens like a butcher's knife and one wrong wipe can land you in disgrace. The dishwashing alcove is already a battlefield. Trays stacked like collapsing cities, porcelain bowls lined up for inspection. Spoons, each with their own royal ranking, require gentle polish with silk cloths. And yes, there is a supervisor whose sole job is to make sure you're not polishing too fast or too enthusiastically. You grab a towel and slide into position beside the rinsing basin. Water sloshes. The bottom is already murky with remnants of pickled radish and status anxiety. You plunge your hands in and begin scrubbing. Across from you, a girl named Ha-yoon mutters. Whose turn is it to dry? Yours, someone answers. Too quickly. You all know it's Ji-won's turn, but she's mastered the art of vanishing during cleanup and reappearing just in time to comment on how hard everyone worked. You rinse a brass spoon that once belonged to the queen's grandmother, supposedly. It has a tiny scratch shaped like a deer. You've memorized it, mostly out of fear. If the wrong spoon ends up on the wrong tray, well, let's just say someone once had to write apology poems for a week. You keep your head down. Hierarchy here is everything. Senior maids don't scrub. They supervise the process, which often means drinking barley tea and sighing deeply at nothing in particular. If you're lucky, they might assign you something mildly better than sponge duty, like stacking trays in the right order. Gold edge, left side, floral print, bottom row, ceremonial sets, locked drawer, guarded by superstition and a creaky latch. Historians still argue whether this meticulousness was about preserving decorum or just preventing nobles from throwing tantrums over a mismatched chopstick. You lean into the rhythm. Rinse, wipe, stack, rinse, wipe, stack. Occasionally whisper a chant to the spoon spirits. Next to you, someone drops a dish. It doesn't break, but the noise ricochets through the chamber like a small rebellion. Everyone freezes. A supervisor raises her eyebrow. "Steady hands," she says coolly. The offender bows like a folding chair. "Yes, senior." You all exhale. The dish is intact. The social order is preserved. You carry a stack of clean bowls toward the storage shelf and nearly trip over a bucket of pickled plum juice. Saved only by sheer instinct and tight calves, you balance, reset, and pretend it never happened. Ji-won reappears at that moment, hair slightly tousled, looking innocent. "Need help?" she asks. "Absolutely not," you mutter. "You're drying." She pouts, grabs a cloth, and begins half-heartedly patting a rice bowl. Cleanup lingers like bad perfume. You sweep, then mop, then sweep again, because someone didn't mop properly and now there's a trail of sticky soy sauce along the corridor. By the time the last dish is put away, your fingers are pruny, your sleeves damp, and your back feels approximately 800 years old. But don't think you're free. You still have to reset everything for tomorrow's breakfast. The rice scoops are hung. The ladles are stacked in descending order of size. The fish grill is re-oiled. The pickled vegetable inventory is updated and signed by someone who's technically literate, but very sleepy. Only when the kitchen bell chimes 3 times, signaling end of duties, do you finally step back and inhale the first deep breath that doesn't smell like vinegar. As you exit, someone hands you a leftover barley biscuit. "Thanks for not dropping the ceremonial plate," they whisper. You nod, tuck the biscuit into your sleeve like treasure, and glance back at the cleaned counters, the stacked trays, the silence settling in like a blessing. You've survived the hierarchy, the scrutiny, and a near pickled plum accident, and now finally comes something closer to joy. Story hour, where words float freer, candles burn lower, and palace life shifts into shadow and song. As the scent of charcoal fades from your sleeves and the echoes of kitchen chaos retreat into memory, you tiptoe your way to one of the few true wonders of court life: evening storytelling. No one announces it. There's no schedule, but everyone knows when it's time. A candle is lit in the inner quarters, low and flickering. A floor mat is placed just slightly off-center, intentionally imperfect, like an invitation whispered instead of spoken. You settle in, joined by Ji-won, So Young, and half a dozen others, some clutching sewing kits, others bringing nothing but tired eyes and eager ears. Tonight's story is being told by one of the older maids, Madam Yun, who's technically retired, but never really left. She sits with a reed fan in her lap, her hair pinned up with a jade stick so ancient it probably predates the dynasty. She doesn't look at you when she starts speaking. She just begins softly, like she's reading aloud from the ceiling beams. "Once in the reign of King Seongjong," she begins, "there was a young court lady who fell in love with a man she was never supposed to see." Everyone leans in. It's one of those stories. There's a magic in these tales, the way they pull you in like warm blankets or late-night wind. This one involves secret notes passed inside sweet rice balls, a love letter hidden in the folds of a ceremonial robe, and, most scandalously, a midnight encounter at the edge of the lotus pond. You sip barley tea from a shared cup. It's cold, now, but comforting. Someone near you is darning a sock. Someone else is silently weeping into her sleeve, even though the story hasn't gotten sad yet. That's the power of anticipation. The court lady in the story ends up caught, of course. They always do. But not before she leaves behind a poem written on silk. 12 lines, 4 metaphors, 1 scandalously specific mention of his hair. Madam. Yoon fans herself and declares that line was censored from the records, but I still remember it. Everyone gasps, softly, as per palace protocol. Historians still debate whether these stories are based on real people or simply embroidered. From fragments of rumors and romantic yearning, Madam Yoon insists they're all true. You choose to believe her, mostly because it's more fun that way. After the love story comes a shorter tale, the legend of the night eunuch, who supposedly walks the halls with no footsteps and knows everyone's secrets. Ji-won scoffs. He's just fast and weirdly quiet. But then the shadows flicker and you all go still. Did you hear that? Nothing. Then a creak, somewhere near the eastern wing. So Young clutches your arm. It's him, you whisper. It's a squirrel, she whispers back. It's a ghost squirrel. Madam Yoon chuckles, the kind of laugh that makes you wonder if she has met the night eunuch. Then comes the shadow play. Someone pulls out the fabric screen. Someone else, Ha-eun, usually quiet, produces 2 carefully cut silhouettes, a crane and a fox. They dance across the lit cloth like figures from a dream. There's no narration, just the flicker of shapes and the murmurs of improvised flute. Music played on a reed someone borrowed from the gardener. You don't fully understand what the crane and fox are arguing about. Possibly breakfast, possibly betrayal. But the motions are graceful, hypnotic. Your eyes begin to blur at the edges, then a soft punchline. The crane bows, the fox steals the rice, and the screen drops. Everyone claps with their hands barely touching. Another lesson in quiet appreciation. The story hour fades, not with a formal ending, but with sleepy smiles and the rustle of shifting knees. Someone yawns. Someone else finally drops her embroidery thread. Before you leave, Madam Yoon looks up for the first time all evening. She says, "You girls think palace life is about rules, but really, it's about stories. The ones we're allowed to tell, and the ones we whisper into the dark." You bow deeply, unsure whether to say thank you or just soak in the wisdom. As you step back into the corridor, the air feels softer. The candlelight warmer. You walk slower now, each step echoing a little less. You've heard tales of love, laughter, and foxes who steal rice. And now the night turns inward again, toward aches, herbs, and healing rooms that smell like forgotten. Remedies and soft, rhythmic breathing. The corridor to the sick room is quieter than usual, dimly lit by a few hanging oil lamps that sputter and hiss with the drama of low fuel and old wicks. You're carrying a tray of folded towels, each infused with dried chrysanthemum petals, and a small earthenware pot of some truly alarming-smelling ointment. Tonight you've been rotated into one of the less glamorous duties, tending to the ill. The royal sick chamber is a strange place, half clinic, half confessional. Some patients lie silent as stones, eyes closed, wrapped in soft quilts. Others murmur half-dreams of old romances and lost fans. One noblewoman once insisted, quite seriously, that a spirit lived in her knee and only responded to ginseng compresses. You step into the main ward where 3 senior ladies lie in separate alcoves, their breathing calm, their complexions pale, in the candlelight. The air smells strongly of dried tangerine peel, roasted licorice root, and the faintly smoky note of moxa that's recently been burned near someone's foot. You set the tray down and begin your rounds. First, damp cloth on the forehead. You wring it gently, fold it twice, and place it across a resting lady's brow. She exhales a soft and turns slightly toward the warmth. Second, herbal application. The ointment smells like pine sap met an old shoe in a hot spring. You apply it carefully to aching joints, avoiding splashes. Last week, a novice spilled some on her own ear and claimed to hear in colors for 2 days. You've learned not to question. The royal physician arrives shortly after, trailing 2 young assistants and a stack of scrolls. He nods at you without really seeing you. That's fine. Your role tonight is to be the silent helper, the elbow supporter, the towel fetcher. He kneels by Lady Yoon and begins taking her pulse, 3 fingers pressed lightly to her wrist. His eyes half-lidded like he's listening to a story only her blood can tell. She's running warm, he murmurs. Increase mulberry leaf, decrease cinnamon bark. You nod. You do not ask why. You do not mention the cinnamon bark shortage you overheard in the herb storage room earlier. Instead, you move to the boiling pot in the corner, a concoction of at least 10 ingredients simmering over a gentle flame. You stir with a bamboo ladle, releasing a fresh cloud of herbal steam that fogs your vision and, probably, your judgment. Historians still argue whether these complex recipes truly had medicinal value or were more spiritual theater than science. Either way, the smell alone is enough to clear your sinuses, your conscience, and possibly your past lives. As you portion out the first bowl, a cough rattles from behind one curtain. Not from illness, from impatience. You deliver the bowl. Help. The patient sit and hold the cup to her lips as she sips slowly, grimacing at the bitterness but too polite to refuse. She pats your hand lightly when done. Better than yesterday, she croaks. You beam, though it absolutely tastes worse today. Meanwhile, in the adjacent alcove, Jiwon is helping another lady soak her feet in warm ginger water. The woman keeps insisting she once danced for the king during a rain ritual and these feet are sacred. Jiwon listens respectfully, even as the woman dips her sacred heel into the basin with the drama of a retired actress. You glance at the apothecary shelf, jars of dried cicada husks, deer antler powder, and something labeled cloud fungus, which you've always suspected is just mold with a good PR agent. A knock on the door. A new patient. A junior noblewoman arrives, wrapped in shawls, claiming exhaustion from excessive embroidery. The royal physician rolls his eyes so subtly only you see it. She needs rest and a break from silk threads, he mutters. Perhaps a new hobby. The noblewoman insists she can't stop embroidering cranes. You wonder aloud whether embroidering peacocks might require fewer stitches. The doctor does not laugh. He prescribes tea with licorice root and reishi mushroom. You fetch the ingredients and brew the tea yourself. The mushrooms look like shriveled coins. The taste? Slightly like dirt wearing perfume. Still, the noblewoman drinks. By the end of the hour, the rooms are quiet again. One patient snores softly. Another hums an old folk tune about apricot trees and eternal youth. You tidy up, collect empty bowls, adjust pillows, and fan out a few fresh cloths. Your back aches from leaning, your hands smell like cedar and old ginseng, and your feet are gently planning mutiny. Before leaving, you glance at the chalkboard by the door, where the night staff have written the evening mantra, warm hearts. Cool heads. Never mix the powders. Solid advice. You step out into the hallway again, eyes blinking against the sudden shift in light. Night has fallen in full now. Crickets chirp in rhythm, shadows stretch long across the floor, and somewhere, not far away, someone is about to sneak into the kitchen, which of course means you're about to do the same. The palace is quiet now, but not asleep. Not truly. Night patrols begin. Doors creak closed. Candlelight shrinks to slivers, and somewhere beyond the eastern hallway, The scent of something fried drifts like a ghost from the kitchen vents. You follow your nose, obviously. Officially, you're performing fire safety rounds, checking oil lamps, making sure no curtain is threatening to reenact a historical tragedy, and confirming that the herbalist hasn't left another moxa stick burning under someone's pillow. Unofficially, you're hunting for a stolen snack. You carry a small oil lamp of your own, its flame flickering against the lacquered walls. The corridor seems longer at night, its echoes deeper. The wooden floors creak more dramatically, as if auditioning for a ghost story. You check each room dutifully, candles snuffed, doors latched, no suspicious plumes of smoke. All clear. Then, you reach the west kitchen door. It's slightly ajar, and something smells delicious. You peek in. Inside, G1 is crouched like a mischievous fox, holding a skillet over the still warm coals. She's pan-frying rice cakes in sesame oil, one eye on the pan, the other on the doorway. You lock eyes. She gestures silently. Want one. You nod like your life depends on it. You slip in, close the door behind you, and settle next to her on the stone floor. She flips a rice cake, golden and sizzling, then hands it over on a piece of scrap paper. You bite in. It's warm, crispy on the outside, slightly chewy, just a hint of soy. You nearly cry. There's pickled radish in the corner jar, she whispers. You retrieve it like it's royal treasure and place a few slices onto your rice cake, folding it like a makeshift sandwich. It's culinary innovation at 9 p.m., and you're not sorry. The two of you eat in near silence, save for the occasional and the faint sound of something dripping in the next room. Historians rarely mention the unofficial snacks of Palace, Maids, but they were real and vital. Bits of scorched rice, fried seaweed, leftover chestnuts. These weren't just food. They were morale. After your third rice cake, you hear a soft noise. Footsteps just outside. You both freeze. The door opens slowly. A shadow enters. It's so young, holding a single candied sweet potato like a peace offering. She looks at you, then Jiwon, then the skillet. Room for one more? You nod solemnly and shift to make space. Soon the three of you are sitting in a rough triangle, passing bits of pickled garlic and telling half-whispers of things that didn't quite happen. How, the parrot mimicked the queen's cough, how Lady Hua allegedly tried to bribe the mirror polisher for better lighting. At one point, Jiwon tries to deep fry a bit of preserved plum. It explodes. You all duck. The smell is unexpected. You open the side window slightly to air out the room. A breeze sneaks in, carrying the soft rustle of trees and the distant hoot of an owl. You look out over the courtyard. Stone paths gleaming, lanterns gently swaying, the palace exhaling in its sleep. It feels like you're outside time. Like this moment belongs to no one and everyone. You sigh, then remember. You're technically still on fire patrol. You rise reluctantly, pat down your robes to hide any trace of snack crime, and resume your rounds. Ji-wan extinguishes the coals. So Young stashes the last rice cake like a war relic. Out in the corridor, your lamp flickers again. You pass the tapestry hallway, pausing to check that none have brushed against lit candles, then the incense alcove, where the scent of sandalwood lingers like a fading memory. You reach the Queen's private study. You pause. There's a faint glow beneath the door. Curious, you tiptoe closer. Inside, you hear pages turning. Maybe she's reading. Maybe she's writing. Or maybe she's just sitting in the quiet, doing what you're all doing in your own way tonight. Listening to the hush between hours. You don't knock. Just observe, then move on. Your lamp grows dim. You refill it at a small oil station and watch the flame leap back to life. It casts shadows of you along the wall, elongated, soft-edged, flickering with your every move. By the time you circle, back to your wing, your stomach is full, Your robe smells like sesame, and your face hurts a little from trying not to laugh. You mark the night's journey in your mind. 2 rice cakes, 1 pickle medley, 0 fires, and only 1 scandalous plum. By now, the palace is more shadow than structure. The courtyards lie still under a moon so bright it casts the cherry trees in silver, and even the breeze tiptoes, rustling the paper windows like a secret. Most are asleep. The queen, the kitchen, staff, the parrots, hopefully. But you're still up. Night duty doesn't end just because the air smells like dreams. Tonight, you're on final watch, a rotating role passed among junior court ladies who haven't yet perfected the art of being somewhere else when names are assigned. You carry a new lamp, heavier, more ornate, the kind used for formal inspections. It swings gently from your hand, casting shadows that crawl up the walls like polite ghosts. Your job now is to walk the quieter wings of the palace, check windows, peek into unused chambers, and most importantly, make sure no spirits have decided to stop by unannounced. Palace superstition runs deep at night. You begin in the eastern corridor near the scroll archive. The scent of aged paper and pine ink still lingers. You glance in through the half-open door, empty, of course. You close it softly. The latch clicks with satisfying finality. Then a sound, a footstep. You pause. Hold your breath. Nothing. Could have been a cat. Could have been a breeze. Could have been him, the night eunuch. There's a story every maid hears before their 3rd shift. He appears without footsteps, carries a bell that doesn't ring, eyes like lacquered ink, voice like a cold wind asking questions you don't want to answer. Ji-won insists he's a myth. So Young once swore she saw him in the mirror. You keep walking, slowly. At the herbal courtyard, you pause to sniff the air. Mugwort, roasted jujube, and fish sauce? Suspicious but explainable. Probably a forgotten bundle from the physician's lunch. Then, something moves. You spin. Nothing there. Just shadows. Long, gentle, stretching toward the cistern. You walk faster. Then a creak behind. You whirl around again, heart pounding, and standing there perfectly still is a eunuch. Short, smiling faintly, holding a lantern that isn't lit. You freeze. He bows. "Evening check," he says, tone polite, voice soft as velvet. You bow deeper. "Yes, sir." He says nothing more. Just walks past you, steps silent, like he's floating an inch off the floor. You don't breathe until he disappears behind a tapestry. You exhale hard enough to disturb the lantern flame. Was that him? No one ever knows for sure. Shaking it off, you move on to the portrait gallery. The heavy door groans open. Inside, moonlight filters through slatted windows, illuminating the painted faces of queens and scholars and one woman with a beauty mark. So distinct it looks like she's winking. This room is always colder than the others. No one knows why. You check each panel, each scroll stand, each corner for signs of mischief. Everything is in place. You pause a moment to straighten one tilted portrait. As you do, you whisper a little apology, just in case the ancestor doesn't like being touched. Historians still argue whether palace ghost stories stemmed from psychological stress, religious belief, or sheer collective boredom. You argue it's because the floors creak like regret and no one sleeps enough. Your final stop is the bell tower, not the main one, the small one tucked in the servants' wing. It hasn't rung in years, but tradition says it should be dusted weekly, in case of celestial emergencies. You're not sure what those are. Probably something to do with comets or misplaced royal slippers. You climb the wooden ladder and emerge into the cool, open platform. The bell sits quietly in the center, green with age, wrapped in climbing vines. You dust it with a soft cloth, avoiding the carved inscription that supposedly reads, Wake only when the sky cries. No one's ever tested that. Yet. Below, the palace glows faintly. Lamplight in windows, the occasional flicker of a candle extinguished. It looks peaceful. You sigh. Then, as you descend, you hear a soft meow. Turning, you find the queen's cat, again, on the roof. How it got there, you'll never know. You carry it down one-handed, the other gripping your lamp, and deposit it gently onto a cushion near the kitchen. It yawns. Unbothered. Unapologetic. As you walk back toward your wing, your duties complete, the floor cool under your feet, you catch your reflection in the mirror alcove. Eyes tired, hair loose, but still standing. You lean in, behind you, just for a second. The lamp flickers, and you could swear someone walked past. But when you turn, no one's there. You've returned to your sleeping quarters now, not to sleep, not yet, but to that hush of winding down. The final lap, the soft unraveling of the day. You settle onto a floor mat, your knees grateful for horizontal anything, and reach for your notebook. It's not an official notebook, just folded parchment tucked between your personal cloths, covered in notes written in tiny, deliberate script. Things you've observed, secrets you'll never say aloud. Dream fragments, tea preferences. The exact moment the queen sighed during her breakfast on the 7th day of snow month. Tonight you add G1 fried rice cakes again. They exploded. The queen's cat might be part ghost. I may have seen the night eunuch. Jury's out. As you write, the mat beneath you creaks softly. Someone lies down nearby. Another rolls over. The room is filled with the rustling of robes, the gentle sighs of tired girls, the occasional whispered joke that dies quickly beneath a blanket. So Young nudges you. "Tell me something soothing," she murmurs. You think, then whisper, "There's a star that only appears after everyone's asleep. It listens." She smiles and turns over. Your pen continues. Nearby, one of the older maids begins humming a lullaby, barely louder than the wind. It's not for anyone in particular, but everyone hears it. You let the pen rest and lie back. The back ceiling is the same it's always been. Planked wood, a tiny water stain shaped like a peach. You once named it High Jin. You don't know why. Someone else whispers, "If you could leave, where would you go?" A pause. Ji-won answers first. "A mountain where no one talks." So Young says, "Somewhere with 5 pillows and no queen." You murmur. "A field. Just grass. And maybe a goat." They laugh. Quietly. Softly. As if afraid to wake the palace itself. Historians rarely write about this part. The whispered dreams, the imagined escapes, the shared warmth of borrowed hairpins, and stories that change each time they're told. There's a comfort in this sisterhood. A camaraderie woven not from grand gestures, but from tiny kindnesses. A shared snack, a rescued embroidery needle, a look that says, "I saw you trip, and I won't tell." Tonight, you pass around a pot of warm barley water, one of the junior. Maid snuck it from the kitchen, bless her, and sip slowly. It tastes faintly nutty, slightly sweet, and just warm enough to melt the day from your bones. As the lights dim, the room softens. So Young whispers again, "Do you think the queen ever lies awake like this?" You shrug. Probably, but with better blankets. She must get lonely. She has a parrot that insults people. Exactly. Laughter again, muted, but real. You curl beneath your covers, your limbs heavy but not yet still. The blanket smells like lavender and starch. Your head rests on a tiny pillow filled with buckwheat hulls. Not soft, but familiar. Beside you, Ji-won has already begun to dream. She twitches once, murmurs something about mackerel. Someone else hums again, softer this time. You don't join in, you just listen. The palace is still, but not silent. It breathes as you do. And soon, it will sleep. Sleep in the palace doesn't arrive like a curtain dropping. It trickles in, like light spilling through rice paper, gradual, patient, unhurried. You're lying on your straw mat now, wrapped in a quilt that smells faintly of wood smoke and old chamomile. The night has deepened. The hush is thicker. No footsteps. No bells. Just breathing. Just warmth. Around you, the room is full of quiet shuffles as everyone nestles into their chosen positions. Some curl into tight knots. Others lie flat, like scrolls, hands folded gently across their middles as if preparing for a dignified haunting. G1 is half asleep beside you, one arm flopped over her eyes. So Young mutters about a ladder made of tofu in her sleep. Someone snores softly. Someone else shifts, then sighs long and low, as if exhaling the entire weight of the palace. You roll onto your side. Your view is familiar. The sloped ceiling. The cracked beam in the corner, the spot where light sometimes flickers as if remembering something. This is when stories return. Not the ones told aloud. Those are over. These are the stories your brain tells when no one is watching. The ones sown from half-memories, side glances, and all the things you didn't say. You close your eyes. You imagine a field, grass waving, no walls, the sun rising slowly behind a hill. A goat, of course, staring at you with indifferent wisdom. You smile. Then, as your mind floats gently between sleep and something softer, you hear a whisper. You awake? It's so Young again. You grunt in acknowledgement. Just wondering, she says, what it feels like to dream in silk. You think for a moment. Probably itchy. She laughs. It's quiet, breathy, not meant to go far. And then, finally, peace. Your muscles let go. Your heartbeat slows. Your thoughts stop chasing each other in circles. There's no more folding, no more tea trays, no more secret cats. Just sleep, gentle, deep, silk soft, the kind that remembers the warmth of friendship, the sound of shared secrets, the weight of a perfectly folded blanket. The palace, for now, is still. The queen dreams behind her embroidered screens. The parrot is silent, probably judging. The night eunuch fades into legend again, and you, in your quiet corner of the world, breathe out one last time and let go. Let your breath soften now. Feel the air against your skin, cool, steady, familiar. Imagine the floor beneath you firm and grounding, the blanket over you a gentle weight. All around, the palace falls quiet. Outside, the moon hangs low over the curved rooftops. The stones of the courtyard are cold, but no one walks them now. Then, breeze carries the last scents of the day. Tea, pine smoke, and a hint of something sweet that never got eaten. The candles are out. The ink has dried. The day is done. In your mind, you're still there, inside that quiet room of straw mats and whispered dreams. You hear the hush of sleeping breath. You feel the soft echo of a story that made you smile. You remember the rice cake, the shadow puppets, the cat in the herbs, the way your name was spoken just once, kindly. Let that memory stay. Let it drift and dissolve and become something smaller than thought. The palace is safe now, and you are part of it. Not rushing, not fearing, not watching your step, just resting. Let each breath carry you deeper. Let each heartbeat soften. You are enough. The day is done. And the night will hold you gently, like a hand on your back, steady and sure. Sleep now. Sleep well. Tomorrow can wait.